In the current day, I have an unpopular opinion. Well, I have many. But this time it revolves around Cyberpunk 2077. I like the game, but I wasn't hardware restricted when I first played it, and I really like the world that it paints. However, like many people, I wanted more. And this time, CD Projekt Red delivers. It is no secret that Cyberpunk 2077 overpromised and underdelivered, but that doesn't mean they didn't give us amazing content. In the time post-launch, CDPR has spent a lot of time finishing the game and creating new content. The expansion, Phantom Liberty, was recently announced, and then Cyberpunk Edgerunners dropped. And boy did it drop. As a standalone anime, I can happily say it's worth the watch. I haven't seen an anime that has packed as much quality content in such a short run, this being only 10 episodes, ever. Pairing this with the narrative from the game and making up for some of the info that may not have been explained in the show, I can only give it a 10 out of 10 for being the perfect complement alongside the game. Now allow me to explain in a spoiler-free fashion on why I think this. When Cyberpunk 2077 dropped, it was marketed as a wild adult city where life was precious because any second a stray bullet could take your life. But upon the players arriving in Night City, there wasn't a lot going on. Minimum adult content, no random shootouts, and overall nothing really to set itself apart from other mature titles. Edgerunners, however, tells the story of Night City in a true, gritty fashion that sends the message very clearly. You can only trust yourself. It gives more insight into the world that V is dragged into, and brings life to people in the world of doing gigs as a team instead of doing things solo, which is something that rarely happens after the prologue with Jackie and T-Bug unless you're doing a specific character storyline. This anime goes wild with action, true to the world. The real problems of Night City come out. Poverty, malfunctioning cyberware, cyberpsychosis, and the helpless fight against the corporations that control every aspect of the city from the shadows as they try to top each other. These are all packed into every single episode of Edgerunners, and it is beautifully done by the only anime studio I would trust with this over-the-top production, Studio Trigger. With other anime under their belt, such as Darling in the Franxx, Kill la Kill, Kiznaiver, and Promare, Trigger has proven that the action can never stop in a show, but still have a gripping plot that artfully displays what it takes to survive in these conditions the characters have to live in. Speaking of the characters, the crew that this anime follows is lively, dynamic, and fleshed out just enough to not drag down the pace of the show, but also does not leave the importance of each individual out. Our main character, David, very much picked the street kid life path. Joining up with these cyberpunks to have a place in this world and make some money while he's at it, he embarks on his journey to Night City fame. Having played the game though, you will know how dangerous of a path this is, but he's not afraid to blaze his own trail even at the cost of his human body, deciding that the only way he will be able to do it is with cybernetic implants. Alongside him, those close enough he could call friends, he has Lucy, who is his way into the crew and a very skilled netrunner, Maine, the strong leader and father figure to him, the muscly Dorio, gunslinging Rebecca, and more supporting characters like Kiwi, Pilar, and the Ripper Doc. Watching the crew's antics gives a sense of found family and helps bring a smile when the setting is trying its best to snatch the happiness from you when you aren't looking. To build off the not looking part, if you're not looking, you won't miss being immersed in this world. The sound design for this goes along just as well as it does in the game, and considering there's a lot of tracks taken from the game and put into the show. To wrap up the spoiler-free section, this show is everything the game title needed and has done a fantastic job of showing what Night City and the franchise is capable of. At this point, if you've made it this far into the video and have not checked out the show, I implore you to give it a watch before continuing from this point, as I will be discussing spoilers for the show. You have been warned. Now that you've hopefully completed the show and have endured the roller coaster that I have, let me get into a little more detail about why I think this show is perfect. And I know I'm a little biased when it comes to this topic, as this genre is my aesthetic, but I really have to say they nailed it. The city, the colors, the vibe, the sounds, it all comes together to bring you closer to Night City than the game ever could. Seeing the same locations from the game was such a good touch too, and really made me appreciate the time they took to make this as connected to the game as possible, all while being completely detached. Personally, I love to see the heavier emphasis on the net running side of the day-to-day life, as real cybercriminals in real life are a constant threat, so why wouldn't they be in Cyberpunk? And also seeing the tech around Night City being used daily too, be it the BDs or cyberware, just help flesh out the city a little bit more. The show really added to the vibe of the game, and it ties everything together with a nice bow, and then blows the package up in true Night City fashion. Specifically now, I want to talk about the characters. In such a short time, I really came to appreciate Lucy, and see her as more of the main character of the story, but in the sense that it kind of revolves around her. She warmed up to her main character and became attached, and then wanting to secure their future together was a heartwarming process to watch, even though all the way back in episode 2 they showed her interest in the moon, and then I knew it was coming. In my most recent Cyberpunk 2077 playthrough, my street kid ended up with the secret ending, drifting towards the casino in space, and I couldn't help but think our pal David would be meeting a similar unfortunate fate to fulfill his promise to Lucy. Her backstory, her skills, and her fighting spirit to do what she wants to alone is, for me, admirable. However, I can't not mention what David turned out to be. He watched Maine succumb to the cyberpsychosis right in front of him, putting the person he loved in danger, but technically that was also part of his lack of focus while they were extracting data from that corpo rat, but nonetheless, he went all cyberware all over himself because he thinks he's built different and wants to be able to be the person everyone relies on him to be. As we all know, nobody is really built different in Night City, and everyone's still at the mercy of the corporations, so by the time episodes 9 and 10 come around, we get our feeling of helpless, damned if you do, damned if you don't situations, and when it comes down to it, David himself becomes a Night City legend. Speaking now about only the last episode and how it ended, I think Edgerunners stuck its landing in every way that it wanted to. We got all satisfying conclusions and all of our loose ends tied. Kiwi got her just desserts, David ended his journey and successfully completed his mission of protecting Lucy, and Lucy went to the moon with David in her heart as well. The one thing I regret is that Rebecca turned into collateral damage from Atom Smasher. They did her so dirty, and she deserves so much more as being one of the key supporting characters. But it also makes sense that this is Night City and that these things happen, especially when you fight the corpse. But really though, in the end, watching Lucy on the moon, knowing that this is how it all ends, leaves me with that same empty feeling that I had when I finished my Cyberpunk playthroughs. Knowing everything I do now about the world of Cyberpunk and seeing the conclusions of V's story as well as now Edgerunners, I realize I have one feeling in regards to this franchise, and that's bittersweet. Bitter that this is now the end of this wonderful content, but sweet I was able to enjoy every last second of it. The amount of hard work that's been put into this franchise since the game's launch, even all the unseen work from before the first teaser, I'm still hopeful for the future. And I know that my appreciation for this franchise will never fade away.